I stood in front of the full-length mirror, staring at my reflection. The dark suit, tailored perfectly to my frame, looked impeccable as always. Today was just another day, another routine, a day that should feel normal, but something in the air felt off. Catherine's words echoed in my mind like a constant hum, refusing to fade. If you say a word about what you found, you won't live to regret it. And neither will your precious little Sophie. I felt my breath catch. What had started as a brief, physical distraction was becoming more than just an affair. I didn't like admitting it, but the truth had begun to seep in. This wasn't just about sex or desire, it was about power. Catherine wanted everything, and when someone like her wanted something, she got it. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I never thought I'd feel guilty for the things I did, but the longer I stood there in front of the mirror, the more the weight of my actions pressed down on me. Victoria Maggie, as I used to call her, had no idea about Catherine. No idea that her life, her perfect little world with me, was slowly turning into a prison. But what if she did know? What if Maggie found out? I couldn't let that happen. I wouldn't let it. I took a deep breath and turned away from the mirror. The sharp sound of my shoes clicking against the floor echoed through the empty house as I made my way to the kitchen. There was Sophie, playing with a drawing she'd made for me, her curly hair bouncing with every excited jump she took. God, she was everything to me. Everything. Daddy, look. Sophie beamed, holding up the crayon-drawn picture of a superhero, her bright blue eyes sparkling with pride. I made you. Is that me as a superhero? I asked, bending down to her level and smiling at the simplicity of her affection. Unhung. You're super daddy. You can fly and fight the bad guys and make the best pancakes ever. I smiled. Her imagination was something else. She was a little spitfire, and just seeing her made everything else seem irrelevant for a brief moment. Super daddy, huh? I said, ruffling her hair. I like the sound of that. Just as I was about to pull her into a hug, I heard Maggie's voice from the kitchen doorway, where she stood, looking at us with an unreadable expression. The warmth that should have come with the moment was suddenly absent, replaced by something else. Disappointment? Worry? I couldn't tell, but I knew she wasn't happy. You're home early, Maggie observed, setting the coffee cup down on the counter. Yeah, I said, trying to sound casual, but the weight of everything. The merger, the lies felt like it was pressing on me. Just stopping by to change. I have a dinner with the Taiwanese investors tonight. I glanced at my watch, an expensive one that probably cost more than most people's houses. I'll be late. Don't wait up again. I saw the flicker of annoyance in Maggie's eyes. That's the third night this week, Thad, she said, her voice quiet but sharp. Obsidian doesn't run itself. Mags, I replied, my tone a little colder than I intended. We're on the verge of the biggest acquisition in company history. This merger could double our value overnight. I knew that line by heart. I'd said it to her 100 times, but something was different now. She wasn't buying it anymore, and I could feel it. I saw her eyes narrow, and for a moment, I wondered if she was going to ask me about the things she knew about Catherine. About the necklace I'd bought her, the private dinners, the lies. But she didn't. She just gave me a tight smile. Willow, sweetheart, Maggie said, cutting through the tension. Why don't you go put your drawing on the art wall? I need to talk to Daddy for a minute. Sophie skipped away, leaving us alone in the kitchen. Maggie stood there, her arms crossed, her gaze fixed on me. I didn't want to hear what I knew was coming. Thad, We barely see you anymore, Maggie started. Willow asks about you constantly. One of us is always missing, and you're never really here. Not in the way that matters. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I'm doing this for you, for both of you, I said. But even as I said it, I knew it sounded hollow. She wasn't buying it. I wasn't buying it either. You're doing this for us? Maggie asked, her voice rising slightly. Or for Obsidian? Or for yourself? I paused, trying to think of the right words. But the truth was, I didn't know anymore. The company had taken over my life, and somewhere along the way, I had lost touch with what really mattered. I'm doing this for our future, I said finally, but even I could hear the lack of conviction in my voice. Maggie's eyes were cold now, filled with something I hadn't seen in years. Disappointment. Willow doesn't care about your future, Thad. She cares about you being here with us. Not this ghost of a husband and father you've become. There it was again, that sharp pain in my chest. I had failed them both, and the realization hit me hard. I tried to brush it off, but I couldn't. Thad, Maggie said, her voice softer now, but just as firm. We need to talk about something important. You're slipping further away, and I don't know how to reach you anymore. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out, glancing at the screen. It was Catherine. I have to take this, I muttered, turning away and walking into the next room, my mind spinning. Maggie's words still hung in the air, but I couldn't let them take root. Not now, not with everything on the line. I stared at the phone in my hand, the buzzing from Catherine's message almost vibrating through me. It was a reminder, a cruel nudge, that my perfect little world was about to come crashing down. The weight of it pressed on my chest. I had been living a lie, and now it was unraveling before me. I hit accept without thinking, and her voice immediately flooded my ear. Are you ready, Thad? Catherine's voice was smooth, dripping with a confidence that made my skin crawl. The dinner tonight is just a formality. We're so close now, just a few more steps. I swallowed hard. I know what's at stake. You need to stop pretending this is all about business. We both know why you're doing this, she purred. And when it's all said and done, you and I are going to have everything we've ever wanted, including his company. I felt a cold chill shoot down my spine. I know. You'll have everything, Thad, Catherine whispered, her tone almost a seductive promise. You just need to stop fighting me. The words hit me like a punch in the gut. I didn't want to admit it, but Catherine was right. I had been fighting for too long. I'd fought the truth, fought Maggie's growing concerns, and even fought my own feelings. I'd told myself I could balance everything Obsidian, my marriage, my family, and Catherine. But deep down, I knew that wasn't possible. Something had to give, and now it was becoming clear which part of my life I was willing to sacrifice. The phone call ended abruptly. I looked out the window of my office, my gaze drifting to the city skyline. It was strange, this sense of power and control I felt slipping away. I'd built Obsidian from the ground up. I had taken risks, made deals, and turned a fledgling startup into a global giant. But none of that mattered anymore. The money, the power, the company, none of it could save me from the mess I'd made. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see Maggie standing in the doorway, her eyes searching mine. There was a softness in her expression, a sadness that made my stomach twist. We need to talk, she said quietly. her voice carrying a weight of unspoken words. I could feel the walls inside me begin to close in. There was no way out now. Maggie wasn't blind. She had been picking up on the signs for months, probably longer. She was too sharp, too perceptive not to notice that I had been pulling away, and now we were at the precipice. About what? I asked, trying to mask the tension in my voice. Is this about the merger? She stepped further into the room, her arms crossed over her chest. Thad, this isn't just about the merger. This is about us. I clenched my jaw. Maggie, we've been through this before. The merger is critical. Obsidian's future is at stake. I'm doing this for us. For us. She repeated, her eyes narrowing. You're doing this for you, Thad. You're doing this for your company. For your ambition, but not for us. I opened my mouth to argue, but the words caught in my throat. I had been doing this for us, hadn't I? At least, that's what I had convinced myself of. But as I looked at Maggie, standing there, waiting for me to answer, I realized the truth. I had been doing it for myself. My empire, my legacy. I had lost sight of what really mattered. I'm doing this for you, Maggie, I said, my voice strained. For Sophie, for our future. Her eyes softened, but there was a sadness in them that made my heart ache. I don't recognize you anymore, Thad. You're not the man I married. You're not the man I trusted. The words felt like a slap in the face. I had spent so much time building Obsidian, fighting for control, chasing success, and now I was losing everything that had once mattered to me. Maggie, Sophie, my family. All of it was slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't even stop it. I'm still here, Maggie, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but I'm doing what I have to do. You don't have to do this, she replied softly. You don't have to destroy everything for a deal. And you don't have to destroy us. Her words cut through me like a knife. I had been so focused on the future, on securing Obsidian's place in the world, that I hadn't seen the wreckage I had left behind. The wreckage of my marriage, my family, my own happiness. I'm not destroying us, I said, my voice breaking slightly. But this merger, it's the only way to secure everything we've worked for. Maggie took a deep breath, her gaze never leaving mine. The only way? She asked quietly. Or is it just the only way you've convinced yourself is worth the price? I didn't have an answer for that. I had convinced myself that this was the only option, the only path to securing our future. But in that moment, as I looked at Maggie, I realized I had been lying to myself. There was another way. There always had been. I don't want to lose you, Maggie, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I don't want to lose Sophie, but I don't know how to fix this. You're already losing us, Thad, she replied softly, because you're choosing everything else over us. Her words hung in the air, heavy with truth. I had made my choice long ago, and now I was paying the price for it. As Maggie turned to leave, I felt a pang of panic grip me. I couldn't let her walk away. Not like this. Not after everything we'd built together. Maggie, I called out, my voice desperate. She stopped at the door, but didn't turn around. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands were clenched at her sides. I can't lose you, I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. Not you. Not Sophie. Please, Maggie. Don't walk away from us. She stood there for a long moment, silent. Then, finally, she spoke, her voice so soft it almost broke me. I'm already walking away. Thad, I've been walking away for months. You just didn't see it." With that, she walked out of the room, leaving me standing there, frozen. The weight of her words hit me like a ton of bricks. It was over. I had lost her. I had lost everything. The rest of the day was a blur. I couldn't focus on anything. Every time I tried to immerse myself in work, in the merger, in the deals that were supposed to secure our future, I found myself drifting back to the same place. Maggie, Sophie, the life I had destroyed. The reality of what I had done hit me harder than any business failure ever could. I had ruined my family. I had betrayed the one person who had trusted me the most. And now I didn't know how to fix it. I sat in my office, my hands gripping the desk, the weight of my mistakes pressing down on me. I had built an empire, but I had lost the one thing that truly mattered, my family, and now I had no idea how to get them back. The days following Maggie's departure from the office were filled with nothing but silence. I sat in the same chair where she had left me, my mind replaying our conversation over and over again. The weight of her words kept crushing me, a constant reminder that everything I had worked for, everything I thought I could hold on to, was slipping away. I thought I had everything under control. I thought the power, the success, the admiration from my colleagues and employees were enough to fill the emptiness I felt inside. But as I stared at the empty chair across from me, where Maggie and I used to sit together, sharing small moments of warmth, I realized how wrong I had been. I had sacrificed it all for Obsidian, for the empire I had built, and in doing so, I had lost my family, my wife, and my daughter. Everything I once thought I valued, everything I once believed would give me happiness, had left me with nothing. Nothing but the hollow ache of regret and the realization that the thing I had taken for granted was the only thing I ever truly needed. My phone buzzed on the desk, a notification flashing across the screen. It was a message from Catherine. I hesitated for a moment before I picked it up, feeling a pit in my stomach. "Catherine, are you ready to move forward, Thad? We have everything in place. The dinner with the investors is just a formality. Don't worry about Maggie. I'll make sure she stays out of our way." My fingers gripped the phone so tightly I thought I might crush it. There it was, Catherine, the woman who had been pulling the strings all along. She had been patient, biding her time until the right moment to make her move. And I had let her. I had allowed myself to be manipulated by her promises, her confidence, and her lies. I wasn't blind to what was happening, but I had convinced myself that I could manage both. I could keep my family intact while I played the game with Catherine, ensuring that I maintained control over Obsidian. But now, as I read her message, I knew the truth. Catherine wasn't just after my company. She was after everything, and I had let her have it. The realization hit me like a wave, overwhelming and powerful. I had been a fool. I had let myself believe that I could have both a successful empire and a family that loved me. But I had forgotten the most important thing. You can't have everything, and sometimes the price of success is too high. I stood up, pacing back and forth in my office, trying to collect my thoughts. I had to make a decision. I had to choose. But how could I choose between the life I had built and the family I had destroyed? My phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my thoughts. This time, it was a message from Maggie. Maggie, I'm leaving, Thad. I'm taking Sophie and we're leaving. I can't stay here any longer, not with everything falling apart. You've made your choice. Now I'm making mine. My heart sank. I had known this was coming. I had known that Maggie would leave me eventually, but hearing those words, seeing them written in black and white, hit me harder than I could have imagined. I had lost her. I had lost everything. I sat back down at my desk, burying my face in my hands. The guilt was suffocating. How had I let it get this far? How had I let the woman I loved, the mother of my child, slip through my fingers? I had tried to justify my actions, work, success, the future. But now, all of it felt meaningless. It wasn't worth anything without Maggie and Sophie by my side. I thought about the future we could have had, the family dinners, the vacations, the quiet moments in the evening when we were all together. I thought about Sophie, her smile, her laughter, the way she looked at me like I was her hero. And now I was nothing but a stranger to her. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let it end like this. But what could I do? What could I say to make Maggie come back? How could I fix this? There was only one thing I could do. I had to make things right with Maggie. I had to prove to her that I was still the man she married, that I hadn't lost everything. I had to fight for them. For Sophie. For the family I had broken. I grabbed my phone again, ready to call Maggie, but before I could dial, I heard the sound of footsteps approaching. I looked up, my heart skipping a beat. It was Thad, my mentor, my business partner, and the man who had helped me build Obsidian. "Thad," I said, trying to compose myself. "What are you doing here?" He walked into my office with his usual calm demeanor, but there was something different about him today. He seemed ... worried, concerned. "I came to talk, Thad," he said, sitting across from me. "I know things have been tense between us lately, but this merger with the Reeves family, this isn't just about business. It's about your future. About your family's future." I felt my stomach tighten. "I know, Thad, but what good is all of this, the company, the wealth, the power, if I lose my family in the process?" Thad looked at me, his eyes narrowing. "You're asking the wrong question, Thad. What good is family if you don't have a future to give them? You've worked hard for this, for Obsidian. Don't let it all go because of one bad decision." I shook my head. "It's not just one decision, Thad. It's everything. I've been living a lie. I've let my company consume me, and in the process, I've lost Maggie. I've lost Sophie, and I don't know if I can get them back." Thad sighed, rubbing his temples. "I get it. But you need to focus on what you can control. You can't change the past, but you can still change the future. You have to make a choice, Thad. You can either fight for your family or fight for Obsidian. But you can't do both." His words hit me like a slap in the face. I had to choose. I had been so blinded by my ambition that I hadn't seen the cost of it until now. I stood up, walking to the window, staring out at the city below. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the skyline. And for the first time in years, I felt completely lost. "I don't know what to do," I said quietly, my voice breaking. "I don't know if I can fix this." Thad walked over and placed a hand on my shoulder. "You have to try, Thad. For your daughter. For your wife. You owe them that much." I nodded, but I wasn't sure if I could do it. I wasn't sure if it was too late to fix the damage I had caused. But one thing was clear. I couldn't let it end like this. I had to fight for them. I had to fight for my family. I just hoped it wasn't too late. The days after my conversation with Thad were a blur of tension and indecision. I couldn't escape the feeling that everything I had worked so hard to build was collapsing around me. like a house of cards caught in a gust of wind. My thoughts kept returning to Maggie and Sophie. The guilt weighed on me, but there was a part of me that still clung to the hope that I could fix this. I had to fix this. I couldn't let everything I had built crumble because of a few bad choices. I had a family to protect, and I had made a promise to Maggie once, back when things were simpler, that I would always be there for her and Sophie. But what had I done? I had broken that promise time and time again, and now I was paying the price. I couldn't let Maggie walk away. I couldn't let Sophie grow up without a father. But what did I have to offer them? My world had become so entangled with business and power that I didn't even know who I was anymore. The man they once knew seemed to be lost somewhere beneath the layers of corporate ambition and personal betrayal. I stood in my office, staring out the window at the Pacific Ocean, the waves crashing against the cliffs below. The view was breathtaking, a symbol of everything I had worked for. But as I looked out, I realized it wasn't enough. None of it was enough. I had sacrificed too much for something that had no meaning without the people I loved. I turned away from the window, my mind racing. I had to do something, but what? The door to my office opened, and Thad walked in, his expression grim. He didn't need to say anything, his presence alone spoke volumes. He knew exactly what I was going through. He knew the price of ambition. "Thad," I said, my voice rough, "I can't do this anymore." He nodded, understanding. "You have to make a choice, Lucas. You can't keep pretending you can have it all. You've lost too much already." "I know," I said, rubbing my temples. "I've been living in a lie. I've been so focused on Obsidian, on building something bigger, that I didn't see what was right in front of me." "Your family," Thad said softly. "You're going to lose them if you keep going down this path." I felt a lump form in my throat. I don't want to lose them. But what if it's too late? What if Maggie's already made up her mind? "Have you talked to her?" Thad asked, his tone more like a question than advice. I shook my head. "No, she's already left the house. She's taking Sophie and leaving. She told me in the message. She's made it clear that she's done." Thad sighed, his eyes narrowing. "You have to try, Lucas. You're not the only one in this situation. Maggie's been hurt. You need to show her that you're still fighting for her, that you're not giving up." I ran a hand through my hair, frustration bubbling to the surface. But what if I've already ruined everything? I've lied to her, betrayed her trust, let her down at every turn. She never look at me the same way again. I've lost her. I've lost everything. Thad's voice softened. "You're not going to get her back by sitting here feeling sorry for yourself. You need to go to her. Tell her the truth. Tell her you're ready to change. But you have to mean it. You can't keep living this double life." I closed my eyes, the weight of his words sinking in. This wasn't just about business anymore. It wasn't about power or control. It was about love. It was about showing Maggie that I was still the man she married, the man who cared about her, about Sophie, and about our future. "I don't know if she'll forgive me," I said quietly. "She might not," Thad replied. "But if you don't try, you'll never know. And you'll lose everything, Lucas, everything." I stood there, frozen for a moment. The decision had never been so clear. I had to make a choice. I had to fight for my family. I had to fight for Maggie. "I'll go to her," I said, the resolve in my voice stronger than I had ever felt before. "I'll do whatever it takes." Thad gave me a long look, then nodded. Good luck, Lucas. Don't wait too long. I didn't waste any time. I grabbed my coat, my mind made up, and headed straight for the house. I needed to see Maggie. I needed to explain myself, to make her understand that I wasn't the man I had been. I wasn't the man who had thrown everything away for ambition. I was the man who loved her, the man who loved Sophie, and I wasn't going to let them slip away. The drive to the house felt like it took forever. My thoughts kept racing, but one thing kept standing out in my mind. I have to do this, for them. For me, when I arrived, I could see the lights in the windows, but everything felt different. The house, once a symbol of success, now felt like a hollow shell. I could almost feel the emptiness inside. The space where Maggie and Sophie used to be. I rang the doorbell, my heart pounding in my chest. The door opened slowly, and there she was, Maggie, the woman I had spent so many years with, the woman I had betrayed. She looked at me with those familiar yet distant eyes. "What are you doing here, Thad?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The words I had been rehearsing for days suddenly felt meaningless. "Maggie, please," I said, my voice raw. "I need to talk to you. We need to talk." Her expression softened, but only slightly. "I don't know if I can do this anymore, Thad." "I know," I said quietly. "I've messed up. I've made a million mistakes, but I'm asking you to let me try. Let me prove to you that I can be the man you need, the man I used to be. For you, for Sophie." Maggie's eyes flickered with emotion, but she quickly masked it. "It's not just about you, Thad. It's about everything we've built together. It's about trust. It's about me not feeling like I'm living in the shadow of your ambition." I stepped forward, my heart pounding. "I know I've failed you. I know I've taken you and Sophie for granted. But I swear, Maggie, I will do anything to make it right. I'll change. I'll fight for us." She didn't say anything at first, just stood there looking at me. Then, after what felt like an eternity, she sighed. "I don't know if I can believe you anymore," she whispered. "But for Sophie, ... maybe we can try." My chest tightened with a mix of relief and fear. I hadn't won her back yet, but I had a chance. That was all I needed. "I'll do whatever it takes, Maggie. I promise." She nodded slowly, her expression still guarded. "We'll see. But this time, no more lies. No more games. If we're going to fix this, it has to be real." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "I'm ready. For real this time." And with that, she stepped aside, letting me in. The days that followed were nothing like the days I'd been living for years. No longer was I consumed with board meetings, acquisitions, and mergers. Every second felt heavy with the knowledge that I had a second chance, one that I couldn't afford to waste. But with that chance came a responsibility one I was determined to fulfill, even if it meant breaking down the walls I had built around myself for so long. Maggie hadn't completely forgiven me, not yet. I could see it in her eyes, the way she still kept a distance. It wasn't like before, when I was the center of her world, and our love was a quiet understanding. Now, it felt like I was constantly trying to catch up, trying to prove to her that I was still worthy of her trust, of her love. We talked. A lot. It wasn't easy. Every word felt like it had the weight of a decade behind it. The things we'd never said, the things we had both buried under layers of busy lives and distractions, those things started to surface. And it was painful, but it was also necessary. There were no shortcuts anymore. I couldn't pretend that everything was okay, that we could go back to the way things were before. The truth was, I had betrayed her, and now it was time to face the consequences. But we were trying. That was the first step. Maggie was willing to listen, willing to give me the chance to prove myself. I saw her holding back, but I also saw the flickers of hope in her eyes, and that was enough to keep me going. One evening, after dinner, I sat across from Maggie in our living room, the silence between us heavy. Sophie had gone to bed early, and it was just the two of us. This was the moment. I knew it. It was the moment when I had to lay everything on the table, when I had to be completely honest with her. No more secrets, no more lies. Maggie, I started, my voice low, unsure of the words that would come next. I know I've hurt you more than I can ever explain. I've been selfish, thinking only about myself, about building something that I thought would fix everything. But I see now that I was wrong. All those years I spent building obsidian, I thought it would make us safe. I thought it would give us everything we needed, but it didn't. It never did. She looked at me, her face unreadable. Then what did it give you, Thad? What did it give us? I swallowed, the weight of her question settling deep in my chest. Nothing. Nothing real. It gave me power, money, success, but it didn't give me love. It didn't give me the family I promised you. It didn't give me you. She took a deep breath, her fingers playing with the edge of her glass, her gaze never leaving mine. And now you want to fix that. You think I can just forget everything, forget how you've treated me, forget the lies, the betrayal. I felt my throat tighten. No, Maggie, I don't expect you to forget. I just want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust again. I'm willing to start over, even if it means tearing down everything I've built. Because you and Sophie, ... You're the only thing that matters. Her gaze softened, but her eyes were still wary. You're asking me to believe you. After everything, I know, I said, my voice breaking slightly. I know it's a lot to ask, but I'm not the same man I was. I see it now. I've been blind, and I've taken you both for granted. But I can change. I want to change. For you, for Sophie. She didn't answer right away. The silence between us stretched, and for a moment, I wondered if she would walk away again, if she would leave me to pick up the pieces of my shattered life on my own. But then she spoke, her voice quieter, more vulnerable than I'd heard in a long time. I don't know, Thad, she said softly. I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if I can believe that everything you say now is the truth. But I see the man you're trying to be. And maybe that's worth something. That was all I needed. The smallest glimmer of hope. I reached out, taking her hand in mine. I will prove it to you, Maggie, every day. I swear I will. I'll show you that I'm worth your trust. She squeezed my hand, but her expression remained cautious. It's going to take time, Thad. A lot of time. But I'm willing to see where this goes. For Sophie's sake. And for ours. The days turned into weeks, and slowly things began to shift. It wasn't easy. There were moments when the tension between us would flare up, and old wounds would open, but we worked through it. Together, or at least, we tried. I took a step back from Obsidian. I handed over some of my responsibilities to trusted colleagues and focused more on what really mattered, my family. Maggie and I started talking again, really talking, about everything. The good, the bad, the ugly. And slowly, she started to let me back in. It was a delicate dance, each day a new challenge. But I wasn't backing down. Not this time. I knew I had to prove myself to her, to Sophie, and to myself. But just when I thought we were getting somewhere, the past had a way of catching up with us. One night, after a long day of trying to rebuild what I had torn apart, I came home to find Maggie sitting at the kitchen table, her face pale and her hands trembling. My heart skipped a beat. "Maggie," I said, rushing over to her. "What's wrong?" She looked up at me, her eyes wide with fear. "Thad, I've been getting strange calls, threatening messages." My blood ran cold. "What kind of calls? What messages?" They're saying they know what we did. They know I left. They know everything." Her voice was barely above a whisper, and I could hear the fear in it. "They're threatening Sophie. They said they'll come after her if I don't stop." I felt a wave of panic rise in me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't just about our marriage falling apart. They were threatening my daughter. "I won't let them hurt you," I said, my voice firm. "I swear I won't. We have to go. We have to leave. I can't risk Sophie... Maggie's voice trailed off, and I saw the fear in her eyes, the same fear that had been there when she first discovered the truth. The fear of losing everything. "Then we leave," I said without hesitation. "We'll disappear. We'll go somewhere they can't find us, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep you both safe." As Maggie and I stood there, planning the next steps, I realized that we were no longer living in the shadow of the past. We were running from it, trying to escape the consequences of everything I had done. But this time, I wasn't running alone. This time, I had the most important people in my life by my side. Our future was uncertain. There was still so much left to figure out. The threats, the lies, the danger, everything seemed like it was closing in on us. But one thing was clear. I would do whatever it took to protect my family, and maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what had been broken.